Okay, so the next thing which I wanted to show you is so currently we are just setting up the Chrome driver, right? But what if we want to make it generic and give the option to the user to choose which browser they want to use, right? So I think I have, yeah, so I have added this browser.driver equals to Chrome in the framework.properties file. And now we need to initialize this particular property from our class, right? So, okay, so where we are going to do it is in the base class, right? So where we are initializing the Chrome driver. So here we'll call in the function which will basically take care of the initialization of any browser driver. So what we can do here is once we get the application URL, after this we are going to say get driver. Okay. And we are going to pass here the browser value. Okay, so this is a function I have not implemented. We are going to implement that. Also, so let's keep these properties outside this method. And I'm going to take another properties to load the framework properties, right, where the browser value is present. Okay, so from here, I can get the browser which we want to run for this framework. Okay, so this is the browser. Once we get that, we'll pass it in this particular function. Okay, so there seems to be a system defined function for get driver. So I will just change this. I'll make it get browser driver. Okay, and now I will put it inside this particular class. So I will say public static will return the web driver here. Get browser driver. And here we will be accepting a string browser parameter. Okay, so if browser not equals to null, right? So if it is null, we'll not do anything. Okay, then we will check if browser dot equals ignore case Chrome. Right, so here we'll be initializing the driver. So we'll say driver equals to set Chrome driver. Else if browser dot equals ignore case Firefox. we'll set the Firefox driver here. Else if it's for Internet Explorer or any Edge browser. Okay, so I mean you can have um, as many drivers as you want for any number of browsers. But for now, let's keep it to 3 drivers, right? Similarly, you can add any number of if-else conditions here. After this, we need create these methods here. Okay. So whatever we did previously, right? So this setup and this driver equals to new Chrome driver, right? So this will be putting across here. And then we need to return the driver. So return driver. Okay, so similarly, you can have for all the different methods which you are calling, set Firefox driver, set iDriver. Okay, so instead of Chrome, just replace it with I or Firefox. And for this, so we have got a iDriver. Okay, and then here also we'll return the driver. So this is going to return me the driver here. So I'm going to say driver equals to get browser driver. And I'm going to remove all this now. Actually, it would have been better if we had created a new class, because already we are extending the base class here, right? So let's do that instead of going to say get browser driver. And let's keep all the code inside this particular class. Okay, so this should work now. So now this has become the generic code. So whatever uh, driver value you put inside the framework.properties, so it is going to launch the respective browser and execute your scripts on that particular browser. Okay, so you can define all the other browser drivers here and the related methods here. Okay, so let's see if it is still working or we have broken anything here. Okay, so everything working fine till now. Also, let's see if it is working for Firefox. I am not sure if I have the right version of Firefox on my system, but let's try it out. Okay, so it seems I don't have Firefox right now, so that's the problem. Okay, if Firefox is installed, then this test should run fine. Okay, so that's the advantage of using the WebDriver manager. You don't need to take care of all the different browser drivers. It will take care of everything, right? So makes your job a lot easier. Okay, so that's regarding making your scripts compatible with all the browsers or allowing your framework to basically set the browser depending on whatever you have set on the configuration side. Okay, in framework.properties. Okay, so the next thing is validations, right? So how do you make sure you are validating your scripts, what you have written, right? So till now, we were in login step devs. So until now, we have just entered values and also clicked on the button, but we were not checking whether the user is logged in successfully, right? So let's go to our demo site and let's go to this login. Okay, so this is the home page, and once we are on the home page, we should be validating something, any particular link, text, which will validate that we are on the actual home page, right? So I can validate any particular link here, but let's try to validate this account link here, whether it is present or not. Okay, so if it is present, that means we are logged in successfully. So let me try to get this XPath. So text equals. Okay, otherwise, let's grab this my account heading text which is present on this page. Since it is a validation, you need to go one level up, right? So uh, I cannot directly identify this particular element on the page because I need to validate that. So I should be going one level up, which means to this div content, and then just take the h2 as the element, right? After that, I will grab the text which is present inside the element. Okay, so that way you can validate. If you directly validate with text equals to my account, right? So that's the element. You don't have anything else to validate here. right? So go one level up, right? So let's take this ID. It is a div element at ID equals content. Okay. And then let's go one level down, which is the H2 element. Also, there are 3 to 4 headings here, right? Which is the H2 element. So I just want the first one. So I will take the index here. That will give me the first element out of all the 4 elements. Okay. So I will grab the text of this particular element in order to validate whether it is my account or not. Okay. So here we can say, so here I'm going to say home page, right? Since this is the home page we are working on, right? Login page is the previous page. So we should create a method in the home page. Now I will say validate text, and I will pass the text here, okay, which is my account. So this is the expected text which we want to validate my account. Right now, I'm going to create a method in the home page. So there is currently nothing in the home page, but we want a method to validate our text on the page. Okay, and this could be any expected text. Okay, so inside this, we want to put the code for validation. And how we can do that is, so we want the actual text, right? But before that, we want the element. Okay, so I'm going to say private static string. And what it is, let's call it the welcome or my account text. Okay. And let's take the XPath here. So this is our XPath. And then I want, so we need to extend the base class here. Okay, so then driver, or we already have our method, right, which we can use. So what we are going to use, okay, so since let's keep it consistent. So we have another level of abstraction, right? So let's do that. We'll create it in the browser utils method. So we'll create a method called this I'm going to call validate login. Okay, and here I'm going to say validate text. Okay, and I'm going to pass the expected text here. Okay, so here are we want to validate the text. Okay, and we also need the element here which we want to validate. So I'm going to call it element. Okay, and we are going to pass the my account text, which is the XPath. So XPath and the expected text we will pass. Okay, and then let's go here, browser utils. So here I am going to say string actual text equals to driver dot find element, or we already have that, right? Yeah, so find and wait for element. We will use the element here, and then we'll get the text, which will return us the actual text. And then we will use one of the assert statements. Okay, so assert true actual text dot equals expected text. Okay, so that will assert the actual text versus the expected text. Okay, and that can now this is a reusable method because it can work for any particular element and any particular text which you want to validate on the page. So just call this method and then just pass your element, or which is the XPath, and your expected text. So it can grab the actual text from the element and it will assert that particular text on that particular page. Okay. If you want to also pass a message here, so we can do that. Right, so there is also a assert true overloaded method, right? So these are called the overloaded methods. If you remember, we have learned about method overloading. So these are all the overloaded methods, right? Assert true, you will see there is just one parameter Boolean condition, and there are two parameters string message Boolean condition, right? So these are two overloaded methods. Similarly, we have for all the methods overloaded. Okay, so we can use any version of the method. We just need to pass the correct parameters. Okay, so I'm going to pass the message here. Okay, so what if the assert fails? Then we should be printing some message, and you should write the failure message here, not the success message, because this message will be displayed when your Boolean condition fails. Okay, so keep that in mind when you are designing your assert statements. It's always the failure message. Okay, so I'm going to say expected text. Okay, and then I will also print what is the expected text, right? I will say is not matching with actual text, right? And plus actual text. Okay, and then comma will put the actual condition here. So actual or expected text dot equals actual text. Okay, so this is the condition and this is the message, right? So this is how you are going to do that. And then, yeah, so that's what it is. Let's go back to our home page, right? Yeah, so we need to call the validate login and we need to pass the actual text. Okay, and here it will be the method which will call the validate text. Okay, so this is our validate method. And then let's run this and see whether it is passing or failing. Okay, so it is passing now. So all good till now. This is how you will put validations around your scenarios, right? Now let's try the other scenario, which is entering invalid username, password, and then error messages displayed on the page. Okay. So for that, now there are multiple ways of doing this, right? So let's see. And there could be multiple scenarios as well, right? Now, this is for invalid username and password. You can have other scenarios where you just enter invalid username, you just enter invalid password, but valid username, right? And checking the error message. So you should be declaring all the other scenarios here as well. Okay. So for this, let's go here. Okay. And what we will do is we will just call the methods now. Okay. So login page dot enter username. We just need a invalid email here, right? So what we can do, yeah, so there are two ways. Let me show you both the ways. So either you can directly enter the email here, right? So let me say test@gmail.com. Dot. Okay, so test 1, 2, 3, whatever, invalid password, and then the error message, right? So this we haven't created this method until now. So let's see what is the error message which is displayed on the page. Let's go to the login page, and here, okay, so this is the message and we need to validate this. Okay, so let's first try to inspect this, which is basically an alert message. Okay, so this is the text we need to grab. So this is the class. Now let's try to identify this. I can take this class value, which seems to be a unique value, right? And what I'm going to do is I'm not going to take the whole text because this may change in the future. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use another XPath method here, which is contains. Okay, so I'll say div. I will use contains. Okay, at class, and I will say alert danger, right? And that will show me this particular message. Now, why did I use alert danger? Because if there is any other message which is displayed on the page with the name alert, which is quite kind of common, right, for every alert. So better to use some kind of unique which will be contained inside this particular element. Okay, so we can use this particular XPath. Let's go back here and we will need to create another method here. We are going to say login page dot validate invalid login. Okay, and I need to pass the message here. Okay, so this is the expected message. So right now I'm taking it from the application, but this you should be getting it from your requirements, right? What message should be displayed in case of an error, that you should be getting from your requirements or your Jiras, right? And you should be using that, not from the application. Okay, so application would be the actual message, but the requirements should be the expected message, and you should validate expected versus actual. Okay, so let's create this method here again. Okay, I'm going to call this message or expected message, right? And then we need to create another method for on the browser utils, or we already have that, right? So let's use that validate text method, right? So here, let's create the element. So let's call it alert, and we are going to call it alert login error. Okay. Let's go back here and copy this XPath, use it here. Now that's the element I want to use, and this is the expected message. Okay. So now you can see I can reuse the previous method. I don't even need to write any code. I am just using that method and just preparing my element and passing the values here to create my validation. Okay, so let's go back to login step devs. Now the error is gone and this is the message. And this is what it should validate. Okay, so let's go and run this. Okay, so both the validations passed. If everything is passing, you don't see any error. That means your validations have passed. Okay. If it is failed, then it will show you the message, right? So we can check that easily, right? Let me change this message, the actual message here or the expected message here, right? So that it fails. And as soon as you do that, you will see error as displayed or the result will be failed, right? The step has failed. So you can see here, this is the expected message. Okay. And then this is not matching with the actual text, right? So this is the actual text. Okay, so looking at the logs or error logs, you can easily make out what is not matching. Okay, to make it more intuitive, we can just adjust the spacing around here, right? So to do that, you can put another space here. Okay. And you can put any special characters to kind of differentiate between your expected text and whatever you are printing, right? So you can manage this particular error message we are printing in the console based on how you want to do it. Okay, so now there should be a space. Okay, so this is our expected text is not matching with actual text. So this is our actual text. Okay, so this is how you should do the validations. Now, what I also wanted to show you is rather than passing these credentials, right, from the scenario, we can also pass it from our feature file, right? And that is where we used the scenario outline and examples, which we learned in the last session. Okay, so I'm going to use that particular scenario now. So I'm going to convert this scenario into a scenario outline, right? And every scenario outline, you have to have a examples section. And that is what it is suggesting you here. Okay, so create the examples section and it will be like a table. Okay, these examples. So what I can say here is username and password. So these are the two parameters which are present in my scenarios. Okay, so I can have multiple values for this. So instead of writing different scenarios, I can have one scenario outline and I can run this scenario for multiple values. Okay, so multiple username and passwords. And that's actually a good way of doing this because if you want to test with multiple values, multiple invalid values, you can use this way. Okay, so I can say test at, or I can have the valid username, right? Actually, this is the email, sorry, as per the application, right? So let's use the same thing. Okay, so this is the valid username and invalid password scenario. So here I will say 1234, some invalid password, right? And we will have at gmail.com. And I will use the valid password here, test at 123. Okay, and then both invalid username and password or where invalid email and password, right? So test 1234. So as you can see, I have three examples and this test should run 3 times. Okay, so the number of rows you add in the example section, that will be your number of iterations for the current scenario, and that you can do using scenario outline and examples. Okay, you also need to make some changes in your step definitions. After you use the scenario outline, you can see these two lines are getting highlighted because we have parameterized some text here. Okay, so we need to make the changes accordingly. So let's go back here. And here I'm going to say email. Okay. You also need to use this regular expressions, right? So this caret sign, that means this is the beginning of the text and dollar means end of the text. Okay, so inside whatever you write would be considered as a regular expression. Okay, and this email is a parameterized value. So I'm going to use regular expression dot star, which means it will accept anything which is inside this brackets. Okay, and then we need to parameterize, or we need to pass the email here, and we need to remove this value and pass email here. Okay, so this is how you write your step definition for a scenario outline with examples. Okay, if you go here, it should be gone now, so this is now correct. Okay, so similarly I can do it for password. So this is the begin and this is the end. right? And you move this and put dot star here and make it a parameterized step definition. So password. Okay, so this is the password. And what was the message here? So let's put the correct message here. Okay, so you can also make uh, another parameter and put this value there instead of passing it from here. Okay, so we can do that. Um, we can parameterize the message here. Okay, and we can create another message. So this is in case you have different error messages for different conditions in your application. Okay, but I think for this application, it is just this particular message, no matter if you enter the username incorrectly or the password incorrectly. Okay, but you can mention different messages. So let's verify that at least. So if I enter the correct email, but incorrect password, okay, so same message. Okay, and then let's correct the step definition as well. So and I'm going to pass the message here. Okay, so I've shown you both the ways. The first scenario, there we are entering the value, right? The actual value, username, password, or we are getting it from a configuration file, right? We can also enter it here. And in the second scenario, we are passing the values in a table from the feature file using the scenario outline and examples. So this is a feature provided by Cucumber where you can make tables and you can pass different values.